In sports, every team and elite athlete competes to win. To achieve their goals and reach peak performance, athletes must practice what they learn. Professionals in your business are no different. Winning happens when teams and individuals are performing at their best. This can only come as a result of habits and behaviors perfected through practice and performance. Whether an experienced executive, a rising manager, or a new employee, at the African Management Institute, we understand how to help your teams and talent perform and win. We do this through evidence-based, practical learning that focuses on practice in the flow of work and not theory or training manuals. From our decades of experience, we also know that Africa's leaders and future workforce are more likely to grow and succeed when their learning experience is designed and delivered by people with first-hand knowledge of the African context. Built specifically for Africa's ambitious leaders, managers, and early career workforce, AMI Enterprises Executive and Workplace Learning blend live learning, practical tools, and experiences with on-the-job, action-based change challenges. Combined with our online and mobile learning platform, learners have on-the-go access to 3,000 tools and over 7,000 hours of course video content. We'll also target your learning to achieve your company's goals. Our dedicated team of learning designers will help your teams and talent executives identify the business outcomes you're looking to achieve and help you select the programs or learning solutions that fit your needs. With Africa's top facilitators and learning success managers, we'll help nurture the winning behaviors your team is looking to build. And whether virtual or on-site, we'll support your teams across the continent with programs offered across a range of languages and cultural contexts. As Africa's leading and trusted workplace learning provider, AMI Enterprise is transforming ambitious businesses and teams like yours to drive business outcomes and growth. This is more than training. It's an experience that will help your team turn goals into realities and performance into profits. Connect with AMI Enterprise today so we can help you build a team that performs and a company that wins.
Talking a lot about learning and how we do it at AMI reminds me of a quote by Alvin Toffler that says, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not necessarily be those who cannot read nor write, but rather those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." And why are we gathered here today? We're gathered here because we have an opportunity also to learn. Learn about how the environment currently is changing quite a bit, and some of the changes that are happening are impacting and affecting our organizations. If I go back to the theme of our meeting today, how to align purpose-driven teams to amplify impact. And we're all about impact. All the programs and learning programs in AMI are all about delivering impact. But now how can we work together to help align our purpose-driven teams to amplify impact in 2015? And the intro of our conversation today, and because we are all from one sector, the NGO sector or the development sector, the intro I have here reads that the NGO sector plays a vital role in addressing societal challenges, building high-performing, mission-aligned teams amidst resource constraints. And we've seen those of us who either manage or run programs currently that are USAID funded, how those constraints now are beginning to bite because they are holding back. And for the next 30 days, or 90 days rather, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can clearly begin to see the effect and the impact of some of these decisions that are tied to resources, how they begin to impact and affect our ways of life and how we get to work. Dispersed teams are also a big challenge, and cultural differences, particularly for those of us who work with teams that cut across borders, who operate in different time zones and have got those different cultural differences, that remains a significant challenge. So this event, ideally, is to provide an exclusive platform for us as HR practitioners or talent development managers to be able to see how can we work and share ideas together to help us manage and align our teams effectively. But in a way that we are going to facilitate and have this conversation, we have to have it in a structured way, and in a way that we can be able to draw out insights for those who probably have had different or unique experiences that they are willing to share with us, to see what are some of the things we potentially could, one, learn, number two, unlearn, and even to some great extent, relearn, just reminding ourselves of what we probably have done and have worked before, that we just maybe need not to reinvent the wheel, and get us to that place where we can walk out of this place today saying, yeah, I picked something that I'm going to do differently, if not better. To help us have this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite a few people who either may be known to us or not known to us, who we probably share a table with, gave a high five at some point, or probably have even met along our career path. And I'll call them one by one, and they'll come and join me right up here on the stage, just so we can be able to have a meaningful interaction and conversation together with one another. And the first person I'm going to invite on stage, and as we do this, let's appreciate them with a round of applause, and let's encourage them even as they get to come on stage. So on stage, the first person I'm going to invite is none other than Loice Ochweri, who's the head of Human Resources Africa at Brac International. Loice, please come in. And Loice is just not one person we welcome like that. And please have a seat. And I like here that we are adding on to the round of applause we'd initially given. Let me give you a brief history around Loice. So Loice is the head of Human Resources for Africa at Brac International. He's a seasoned HR leader with over 15 years of experience in human capital management. Her expertise spans talent acquisition, performance development, organizational strategy, and fostering inclusive workplace cultures. Now, with a career that's taken her across Africa, India, France, and the US, Loice brings a global perspective to aligning talent strategies with business goals. And at Brac International, she's the helm of building high-performing, mission-driven teams and tackling complex HR challenges with precision and purpose. Is that a profile or not? I feel like I need to take water based on just having read that, but welcome, Loice. We're glad to have you. Thank you so much. All right, the next person I'm going to call, you can clearly see the guys we have on stage are going to be people of great knowledge and insight, so be prepared. Allow me at this point in time to invite another lady panelist, none other than Karen Olege. Karen, we welcome to stage. A round of applause as Karen comes. Thank you so much. Let me give you a brief around Karen. You can sit, yes, right there. Let me give you a brief about Karen. So Karen Olege is the Associate Director of People and Culture at Evidence Action. And of course, she comes with a wealth of experience and expertise in talent management, organizational transformation, and leadership development. So she has honed her skills in high-impact roles across leading organizations such as Evidence Action, Norwegian Refugee Council, Voluntary Services Overseas, that's VSO, ICEA Lion, and KPMG, where she successfully aligned people's strategies with business goals to drive sustainable growth. Known for her ability to build inclusive, high-performing teams and navigate complex organizational challenges, Karen's work focuses on fostering cultures that empower individuals and teams to thrive. Her deep understanding of change management and strategic workforce planning positions her as a thought leader in aligning talent with mission-driven objectives. And so Karen is here to share her wealth of experience in aligning talent strategies with organizational missions, providing practical insights for building high-performing teams in dynamic environments. Man, if you don't know how to write a profile, and I'm being offered water. I feel like my tongue is in a gym session, you know, and making sure that the profiles are read out well. Again, proper round of applause. Karen, we're glad to welcome you. And of course, in our country, we know that all meetings must be constitutionally constituted. I like that. And so, always applying the 1/3 gender rule. I am telling you, constitutionalism is really catching up with us even in the workplace. Allow me to now invite the gentleman of the day, who's also going to be a panelist here with us, none other than the bold Bernard Atonga. A round of applause as he boldly walks to the stage to sit right next to Karen. Yes, thank you so much. So who's Bernard? Allow me again to just give you a brief. So Bernard Atonga is a passionate and result-oriented people and culture leader with over 15 years. 15 looks like we start measuring your experience at 15. 15 and above, you know. When you get to 13, you're still there, almost there, but 15 looks like the number. All right? 15 years of proven experience in driving strategic HR initiatives across diverse sectors, including manufacturing, logistics, publishing, public sector, professional services, and non-profit organizations. Looks like Bernard has been all over the place. All right? And currently serving as the head of people and culture at WWF Kenya, Bernard has successfully led transformative initiatives such as culture transformation projects that enable enhanced morale, productivity, and profitability, as well as implementing HR automation to improve efficiency and cut costs. With a master's in human resource management from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and certifications as a certified human resource professional, and a registered trainer at NITA, Bernard stays at the forefront of HR best practices. He's also a certified facilitator under the African Facilitator, or rather Africa Facilitators Accreditation Program. Bernard is deeply committed to creating environments where individuals and teams can thrive, and he finds immense fulfillment in helping people unlock their potential, driving sustainable socio-economic development, and transforming organizations both locally and globally. What a wealth of experience in these three people seated in front of us today. I think for the panelists that's been constituted legally, constitutionally, why don't we now together give all of them a proper round of applause? Glad to have you. I think this is one of those sessions, leave alone the bench with Jeff Koinange. Here I need like 4 extinguishers, you know, just to make sure that as conversations come down, then we are going to get some good things coming up. So I have a raft of questions that I'm sure you're keen to hear how our panelists will answer this. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I need to let you know that your session is probably actually the most important in the sense that as they give us their insights or as they share insights with us, I am sure somewhere down the line you've encountered experiences probably that still are a thorn in your flesh, an issue you're still struggling with. We would quickly also want you to take notes and put down some of those questions, because shortly after a few questions here, you're going to be given an opportunity as well to ask some of those questions. And here's where their peer learning comes in. We learn from one another. We are not just necessarily looking at our pool of panelists here as experts in their own rights, which they are, but you equally are experts in your own space. So wanting to hear your views around some of the things, experiences that you're currently also going through at work. So I don't know whether I should throw this to the team. Maybe I should as participants. Who would you like to be the first one to answer a question? Let's ballot this one out. The first name you shout out will be the first person to answer a question. So who is it going to be? Loice, there you go. We are living in a democratic state. Let's apply some of that democracy here. How appropriate. So Loice, even before I get to the question, I'm already setting you up for success. Giving you time to think. So what is Nick going to answer, or ask rather? And I have a basic introductory question for you, Loice. Your experience spans various roles in HR across Africa. So we're not just talking about the region per se. Could you please share a pivotal moment when aligning a team to an organizational purpose led to some kind of a measurable impact that you're actually proud of, that you'd want to share with the team?
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everyone, for volunteering me. I think I'm going to contextualize it to the NGO because this is development work. In my last engagement, I was hired as the first HR manager. So as NGOs normally begin, we start with flagship programs, we see if the programs will work, and then we start putting together processes or systems. So I was hired as the first HR manager, put in a place and told, we have 2 flagship programs, they're working well, we have people in 5 countries, put in place a HR system. So it was daunting to begin with, but I think that having leadership buy-in, them understanding that, yes, we have programs, but programs are essentially run by people, right? They don't run themselves. So one of the things we did quickly is, first you have to have a team within HR that understands the mission, understands what the organizations want to achieve. And for me, I always want to surround myself with people who have the same HR philosophy. And for me, that is, people are at the center of the organization, right? So having built the team, I think I'm still very proud of the team we built. And then went into the countries and did a few things. One, we did standardization of benefits across Africa. So that's not a small feat to achieve. So we had to do salary surveys, we had to do new structures and all that and put that in place. But we also had to do something else. We had to, other than the basic salary, we had to think about what are people-centric policies or yes, policies, but also benefits. So things like retirement benefits. Like, I know the way the NGO works is that we are contract-based because we are program-based. So as an organization, we had to think about when a program ends in 3 years, it's very unfortunate if our staff, at the end of the 3 years, have nothing to show for it. So we put in place people-centric benefits like retirement benefits. The work that we did in that context was also sometimes dangerous. So it was like, in the event that an employee dies, what does the organization do to cushion their family, to cushion their dependents, if in the unfortunate events that they pass away? So that for me was a big achievement, and not to say that I achieved alone, because having leadership buy-in is very, very important. But that, to me, looking at the legacy, and the most important thing, coming into a role where there was basically no HR, is positioning HR as a business partner. And that means in operating in context where you have different country directors in different countries, in addition to senior leadership, how do they view HR? And that is achieved by you consistently showing that the initiatives that we are doing, the things that we want for our staff, have a direct impact on programming, productivity, and so on and so forth. So very proud of that.
Very well done, very well said. Karen, you're next. Yours is also an introductory question. So Bernard, by now you know how this is flowing, okay? so Karen, you've also worked with diverse organizations across sectors. Can you share also a defining moment in your career when aligning teams around a shared purpose also significantly amplified impact?
Yeah. Okay, I think a defining moment for many of us was COVID-19. It still rings. It's been a long time since, but it's still fresh in my mind. It found me in corporate, and at that time I was the learning manager. So I had built a vision for learning. I had gotten partners of institutions where we were going to learn. We had mapped out needs, and the direction was very clear. But March, you have barely done anything, and there was COVID. And one of the areas that was highly impacted was learning because of the institutions. You know, the traditional way of learning could no longer hold. But secondly was also budgets. So in as much as we had secured the budgets prior, the budgets had to be rethought because organizations were on preservation mode and they could only spend on what is super important. And of course, at COVID-19, learning is not even important, let alone super important. But I had worked with a team. And in this team, I like how the team was formed because, of course, I talked to the big guys in the organization and I really had buy-in initially. But at some point, there was a lot of skepticism. So I saw these guys are very skeptical. Like her, I think I surround myself with like-minded people. I sold the vision of learning to just other people who really bought in, you know, the lower level staff who really bought in. And I formed a working group from these ones. And they are the ones we had developed a learning strategy and vision with. So of course, when COVID came and everybody was like, wait and see, everyone was thrown off. I was also really thrown off. I didn't know, okay, so what are we doing next? And they would nudge me and ask me, what are we doing next? And I would say, we are waiting to see. Everybody is waiting to see. And they started to push me to act. They were like, there's no way this year is going to lapse and we haven't done this. And I would now tell them the constraints. You know, now we no longer have the budget. We no longer have this. We no longer have that. And I was amazed at how much they would push me to think, what else can we do? I think even if we don't have this, we can do this other program. We can go online. We can train on Zoom. And it was a very unique concept at the time. In as much as it's everywhere now, we can train on Zoom. We don't need the institutions. Let's do a lot of peer learning. We created programs. We created a program called Millennials Engage, a learning series for that demographic, that age group of people in that organization. We created program training learning series. We had experts from within the organization convening learning sessions every week, and people were still able to push through with their learning. That one moment was very defining for me in that I learned that when you inspire a shared vision, you build a high sense of accountability. So even when you don't have the strength or the ideas to figure out how you need to move forward, there's a team that will coerce you into doing it. And another lesson I learned is great ideas, they come from anywhere in the organization, not necessarily at the top. So involving everybody has a way of making sure that ideas will come. Thinking is a hard job. My job is all about thinking, and at the end of the day, I'm so tired as though I was on a construction site. I have learned that I can delegate thinking. So I lay down my plans and my vision and my strategy to my team all the time. Yesterday when you called me, I told you I was still at lunch at 4. I was with my team laying down the HR vision for evidence action for this year to them and discussing it over lunch. Why? So that those times when I have certain challenges and certain obstacles and things have changed and things are changing, hi US and Trump, things are changing. But even when things change and I can't figure out the way forward, as long as the vision was with my team, they are going to be there, the factor that will push me forward. And I enjoy that because everybody needs accountability at a certain point. But at the same time, you also need people to help you to reason. And it will not always be consultants. It can be for free within the organization. So I think for me that was a defining moment. And we were able to build that learning culture despite the constraints that were there at that moment. A key challenge that we were addressing at that moment was this junior and mid-level staff. The organization was one of those, 1960, and people joined, and now you just have your grandfathers and grandmothers, running the show. And we needed these ones to build capacity and strength. And we were still able to achieve that even within that context of COVID. For me, that was a defining moment.
Defining moment indeed. And I can already see two themes already coming up from what you and Loice have already shared. Just the bit about not doing it alone, involving others, a shared vision, and even when you're talking about making sure you're laying the vision for the people to take it in over lunch hour, over lunch hour, they work well over lunch hour. And so something is coming up right there. Bernard, so picking up from Karen's conversation, COVID brought some crazy challenges, and not only for the NGO sector, only for everybody. And guys began looking at adopting a lot of the operations from a technology standpoint, because that's when it really became an accelerator. Now for you, you've led successful HR automation, of course, pretty much at WWF Kenya. What advice would you have for organizations looking to leverage technology to align teams more effectively without losing the human touch?
Wow, I was preparing to answer the question. And my points. Okay, so I think for me, the first thing we need to move from presentism, where you desire to have people in the office, to a more purpose-led kind of an organization, where now we are looking at outcomes more, or you're looking at what people are delivering more than how much time they've spent in the organization. And that is a mindset shift. A mindset shift in terms of, before COVID, we were used to, everyone is coming to the office, you know who, and the assumption was all these people are working because they report at 8, they leave at 5. Now come COVID, things have changed. We have to adopt technology. Number one, you're in a meeting, people are afraid to put on their cameras. You don't know whether they are concentrating in the meeting or they are cooking lunch while having meeting, yeah? So by the time you ask, so-and-so, what is your response? They go quiet for a minute, and then my network was bad. Can you repeat what you said? But this person wasn't concentrating in the meeting in the first place. So it pushed us to build trust. And you build trust with your teams. And when you want to adopt technology in your processes, the first place you need to start for is building trust, believing that you have actually employed the right people. And these right people, when given the right tools and the right deliverables that can be measured, you're able to leverage very well on technology. But if the deliverables are not clear, so but that by the end of the week you don't know what were the outcomes this person was supposed to produce at the end of the week, or at the end of the month, or at the end of the quarter, or at the end of the year. Those things need to be very, very careful, very, very clear to each and every staff. That's why then this tool become very important to you, and you're able to get results from these tools. These tools can be just tools there if they're not being utilized for the right purposes. So number one, build trust. Understand that I've actually recruited the right people to do the right thing. I usually tell my managers, you're not leading children. You're not supposed to police people in the office. These are not children. I tell people I have a privilege of leading someone's grandmother, someone's grandfather, someone's daughter, someone's son. It's a privilege. So I don't need to actually kind of watch them or police them. I believe you are here to do the right thing. I ensure that your deliverables are okay, and then now I measure deliverables. So when you're talking about performance at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, we are just talking about this was what you're supposed to do, this is what you've done. So the results speak for themselves. If you're underperforming, you're underperforming. If you're performing well, you're performing well. It's very, very clear. So I don't care whether you choose to work at Java the whole day, you choose to sleep the whole day today at home, as long as the deliverables are there, that is the most important thing. So that's what I'm saying. For the tools to work, you need to move from a mindset shift to move from presentism. I have to see this person in the office to know they're working. With these Gen Zs, the thing about it is they can be there, but they can be doing whatever they are doing the whole day. But you believe because they're in the office, they're actually delivering. So clear deliverables will be able to ensure that you take advantage of the systems and the processes and also the technology that you want to put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, when we talk about trust, it's one of those easy things to mention, but building it in a team has its own unique challenges, right? And we all know trust is a two-way traffic. And the organizations that, yes, have built high trust levels with their teams, there are those who trust levels are still pretty low, and that in itself portends a risk, even though you want to operate that way. So Loice, this is for you. From your experience, how can HR leaders mitigate institutional risks, particularly at that level of employee engagement, and foster a purpose-driven kind of a workforce?
Okay. So risk for I know it's a bit of a cliche because people say you have to do post-mortems, right? I'm a big believer of pre-mortems. So in every endeavor you want to do, we want to do a training, we are going into a new country, we are expanding operations. Having an understanding of what is our mission, what do we want to achieve. A pre-mortem is where every stakeholder comes and says, what could possibly go wrong, right? Before we even start, implementing or thinking about it, because for me that's part of change management. We will get resistance, whatever it is that could possibly go wrong. You then have to put in place risk mitigation. In the event this happens, this is how we will respond. In the event this happens, this is how we will respond. And I think HR being at the forefront of change management, it's almost, for me, something that you cannot not do. Because failing to do that, then when it happens, as an example, I work in context where getting skills is very, very difficult, right? So because we want to move into localization, meaning we're working in country X, I want staff from country X. I don't want to bring expatriates. But you go with the assumption that I will get the skills I need, right? So part of pre-mortem is then thinking, if I don't get, because I know I have a timeline, what is my mitigation measure in the interim before I get the skills, right? So it helps you to prepare better, to think through, to put in place change management skills, to communicate also to your country director and say, because of these things that I've found, because of this data, because of this research, I might not get who you need in 3 months. But in the interim, this is what we plan to do. So for me, that's how I approach risk management, is thinking about it before it happens, putting in place mitigation measures, but also communicating so that people know there's a likelihood that this is happening. Of course, going in, you hope it won't happen, but if it happens, you're better prepared to take it.
Being prepared. I hope, and I can see guys really taking notes, which is a good thing, because your time is soon coming where you can ask some of those very pressing questions based on the challenges you face. You talk about pre-mortem, that's a new term. Walking out of here having learned something, remember learn and learn, relearn. Pre-mortem, I'll use that somewhere very soon. But having said that, yes, the need to be prepared to mitigate risks is, be already in a position where you can assess what those potential risks would be. I do believe from a HR standpoint or talent and development manager standpoint, one way of mitigating risk is just ensuring that we have either one, like a talent management process to manage the kind of talent pool we have, up to and including succession planning, because shortly we have guys exiting and we have new people coming in. So Karen, this then becomes your question. Particularly when we're talking about talent development and succession planning, what strategies have worked for you in creating talent development and succession planning programs that reinforce an organization, so your organization's mission and purpose?
Yeah, I think many people would agree with me here that succession planning is something that we understand in theory. I am yet to find a place where it's done perfectly. There is a lot of thoughts around succession planning. You have developed these people, but you can't guarantee that the one who will leave, when they leave, this one will be there. This successor has also left. I think for me, it's a lot of HR mandate lies with the line managers. Your team leaders carry a lot of HR mandate. They're best placed to see where the talent is located in the organization and within their teams. And just as Bernard said, we do recruit well. We recruit competent people many times. And in our job market now, especially in Kenya, this differs from country to country, but allow me to talk about Kenya. Our job market is quite good. We have, even when you're looking for diploma, you end up hiring a master's because it's available. You end up hiring 15 years experience even when you ask for 5 because it's available. So we have people who are qualified in the teams, and we leverage on those ones. But you have to look to see. And the team leaders, most of the time you have to compel them, pull them out of their programs, because they'll be obsessed with whatever it is. If it's a finance lead, they're obsessed with the banks and reconciliation. But from time to time, you need to pull them away from that. I tell them to stand on the balcony where they can see their teams from that bird's eye view and look at, okay, who is my critical talent here? What happens when this person leaves? Who can take over? They're able to do that mapping very simply because you understand your team and you know the skills and competencies. Even without looking at job descriptions and what people have or don't have, you already know the talent that is seated within you. You already know what are the little gaps here and there that I can already bridge to make these people ready. As many people as possible should be ready to take up other positions, because again, it's a game of chance. You are not holding these people like in slavery. So ideally, any of them can leave, but you want to have as many successors as possible. Secondly, you also want to build a lot of leadership that is not about positions, it's about responsibility, so that everybody in the organization is a leader. So whether it is committees, working groups, any kind of informal leadership, so that you start to bring out the leadership capabilities within people. They're training on the ground as they continue to work. That makes it easy for people to flow seamlessly into supervisory, managerial roles when those become available. Then secondly, it's just to work on our policies in terms of transitions, because I think sometimes our policies work against us. Our policies do not allow us to promote if somebody has not been here 1 year, yet the one you're bringing has not been here a day. So it doesn't make any sense for us to have such policies that are very restraining. They are very archaic. and they are very colonial. So for me, it's to be extremely open-minded, because we are gonna get into times when nobody will be working for you 2 years. That will be a very long time. So if you need to assess somebody's capacity within 2 years before you can promote, then you will never be able to do that. So I think it's time to relook at our policies and continue to look, because again, what is good today will not be good tomorrow. So for me, it's that. And you need to carry your leadership team with you. Because most of these things, again, it takes a mindset shift. And HR, we don't operate alone. In fact, we are almost at the back end, so you really need to make people see your point when you're in HR. So just talking about these things also in your leadership team and showing them what benefits there are in you flexing some of those policies, in you taking time to build your teams. I think that continuous conversation, because when you hear something repeatedly, even a lie told many times becomes a truth. So if you say it again and again, then they are able to internalize it, and it starts the mindset shift.
Wow, great insights coming through. And yes, we operate in a market where we would say talent is readily available, where we've seen adverts for recruitment on a certain position and you have thousands of people lining up, sometimes making it very difficult to actually even get the right kind of person. Now, do you leverage on experience? Do you leverage on level of education or expertise? But I also do believe that, yes, whereas recruiting is a tough job, and sometimes even sitting on those interviews can be very draining for very many of us. I know when you have those recruiting seasons, it's another job description of its own. But yes, we work so hard, we tap what we consider to be the best talent. And now we're operating in organizations, particularly for us in the development sectors, where we have operations in different regions, you have different cultures, then again, compounding on the complexities of different generations at the workplace. So we're trying to talk about, yes, so we've tapped the right talent, but now how do we engage them now that they're in? How do we keep them active? How do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them productive? So, Bernard, I have been cooking you for this one. With your experience in driving employee engagement, how can HR leaders ensure teams remain motivated, and aligned with the organization's mission during times of change that, again, even Loice has talked about, and uncertainty? Where, for example, now we've seen what's happening with the US in terms of freeze for particularly USAID-led programs. There are many guys who don't know whether tomorrow they'll have a job. But there are those other programs that are currently ongoing, and probably their level of delivery for whatever it is that they do would be impacted in not such a long time from now. So to drive engagement and, motivation, how does that get to work?
I think the first place we need to start is being open as an organization. Decisions are usually made at the boardroom. We sit as senior management team, we deliberate on decision and make decisions. The challenge has always been, we never consult the people who those changes are going to affect. And that's where the problem starts. We assume we have this great strategy, we have this great thing, we've looked at our processes, I think this is the right thing to do, and then what comes out is a memo sent to staff, all staff. Dear note, we've done this effective this date. And then what happens, there is a backlash. And then we start talking about resistance to change. It's not an issue of resistance to change. Is they don't understand the why of the change. And that is where we need to always start. We have this great program. We have this great process you want to change. You've looked at how things are going. We've realized probably from an NGO sector, our funding is going down. Let us, these people know. Let's say, for example, what has happened with the USAID and the cessation of funding for 90 days. My expectation is those organizations that have been affected, the first thing should have been call a town hall. Ask the questions. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? How do we go forward from here? Okay? Let me give you a practical example. When COVID happened because we are getting, most of our funding comes from the network partners. And the countries that our funding was coming from were actually heavily affected by COVID. And very well, you just note that they'll restrict a bit of money so that they can deal with their issues before they give out more funding. So the question that we sat our staff down is to ask, when it gets at the end, when now we know we can't afford each and every one of you, what happens? And people start giving ideas. Okay, we can take a 50% salary cut. We can do this, you can do this. So it's not the organization sending out a memo and saying, we are going to cut your salary at 50% because we've seen. But if it comes from them, there's a buy-in. And it goes back to trust. You're building the trust of your team. And the team now start trusting the leadership. What has always been the issue with most organizations is there is a trust gap between the staff and the leadership. And as people and culture, we are the people in between that space. We are the people who are bringing the staff and the leadership to one place where they all are able to hear each other, are able to understand one another. So for there to be highly engaged teams, we have to be open with our teams. We have to share these strategies. You want to change a process? Call a town hall. Say, we've been going through this. Or even just send an email saying, we are planning to change this. We would like to hear what are your suggestions of these changes. One of the things we do, we have an innovation hub where we say, when someone comes with a very good innovative idea, they'll be compensated for that idea. So people rush to give ideas on how to change different processes. And we have a team that is looking at those ideas, and the best idea, the staff is actually recognized for that idea. And then those ideas are implemented. What happens is you're building trust for your teams, and these teams become more engaged. They're able to deliver more. So in conclusion, what I can just say is that, number one, inform the teams the why of the change. Why are we changing? And what will this change look like at the end? Who will it affect? And what have we thought through about the people that will affect them moving forward? So that you are not just throwing, change is difficult. Change is very difficult. Not for just for anyone, change is just difficult. But for us to make it, we provide a psychological safety for our staff by giving them everything that they need so that they're able to process. We don't have grapevines, we don't have gossips in the office, because you've given all the information is on the table. People are digesting the information with the leaders. They ask all the questions. The ones you can't answer, you can say, for now, as leadership, we haven't processed that. We'll process it, and then we're going to come back to you. Being open and honest is the best policy. Thank you.
I like that.
Can I add
Yes,
to that?
Loice, please do.
I trust Bernard already. I think other than the why of the change, I think it's also important for employees to understand why I am a program officer. Why am I doing what I'm doing, right? I was sharing with Renee and Wangari during breakfast that in some countries where we work, half the year it rains, the other half is extremely hot, if you've been to West Africa. A lot of the work, I think the mentality is that the program manager is the most important person, the head of programs is the most important person. But those people rely on frontline staff to do reports for donors, to make sure that we are, utilizing our donor funds and whatever. But if those frontline staff don't understand how their work, right, feeds into the overall mission of the work, that's when employee disengagement happens, right? So I think part of HR is also going to the front line, and I tell a lot of our HR teams that we sit, and I'll keep bringing to West Africa, because West Africa is extremely hot, right? So we sit in offices with AC, but then we expect results from the people who are out every day, being rained on mountains, on bikes, on every day. But we don't even take the time to go and see where are they working, how are they working, are they facilitated? So I think HR has an extra burden for me in the NGO sector for frontline staff, because they do all the work, right? We sit in, fancy offices, drinking tea, nice breakfast, but the program staff are out every day in harsh conditions, extreme conditions. So if they don't understand the why, then there'll forever be employee disengagement. Just wanted to understand to Bernard.
Thanks, Loice, and that's a very good point. I mean, we're talking about situations where things change instantly. One way to navigate that is, first of all, confront the brutal facts, isn't it? Because that's what the ground is saying. Then explain the purpose of the why this has to happen for greater buy-in, for people to give their ideas and suggestions. And I think the last one I'm getting is, ultimately, when people are informed and engaged and involved in decision making, they will know that once a decision was arrived at least their opinion was what? Their opinion was sought or considered. And that in itself helps mitigate and manage a lot of the risks that come with sudden change. I want to flip gears a bit because shortly we are coming to the rest of us just to be able to see what kind of questions we have to our panelists. And so this could potentially be like the last one for each and every one of us. So we are entering 2025. We're already in one leg, probably, and a few toes. and already it's moving so quickly. Jan is done. We are shortly moving to the second month of the first quarter. There are those of us who probably our financial year of planning or strategy planning has not yet begun because we're probably wrapping up the last one. There are those of us who probably have already begun implementation. And I just want to draw insights from our panelists here and to each and everyone. So maybe let me go with Karen for this one, and then I'll come back to you, Loice. And then Bernard will close this session for us. So, Karen, as we get into 2025, measuring impact becomes a critical thing. And it's important to be able to know whether whatever it is we're doing as programs or activities out there, whether they're working or not. What metrics or tools do you recommend for HR professionals to measure the success of what ideally would be a purpose-driven team or purpose-driven teams to ensure there's always alignment with organizational goals? This could be tools that maybe you're already using and are working for you. Maybe, yeah, part of us as participants already have that. Maybe there could be more that we could look into. I don't know if you have something to share around that.
Yeah, I think in HR it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative. I work for an evidence-based organization and I struggle with qualitative because nobody hears anything that is not numerical. Otherwise, having said that, I would say feedback. Feedback to me is an important metric because we serve the staff. Those are our clients. Feedback from them about how we have served is an important metric. You know, if I want to know if you're satisfied with the breakfast, I just need to ask you and then trust what you have answered. In HR, we struggle a lot to trust people's feedback. So someone tells you the breakfast was not sufficient, you're like, no, I don't think they're right, because imagine we provided several things, so I don't think they are accurate in how they're assessing. But at the end of the day, it is what the person is telling you. So feedback mechanisms, whether it's through the engagement surveys that we do, and let's have some purposeful engagement surveys. If we are doing 3 in a year, I don't know how purposeful those are. You know, we are not doing them for the sake of doing them, but we want to honestly act on the feedback. So let's ask the relevant questions. Let's take in the feedback. Let's talk back to the staff and tell them this is what you said. Step 1, we have heard you. Step 2, this is what we have done. Step 3, confirm whether you have met their expectations. And it is okay to not meet expectations, but you go on improving as long as you're getting feedback. Have as many feedback loops as you can. For HR, it is usually good, even just pulse checks, even informally, you know, getting people's feedback and trusting that feedback. That gives you some metric to use. But more quantitatively, I would talk about reinforcing our performance. And Bernard has alluded to it because he's talked about outputs and outcomes. And I think the NGO space is one of those where everything can be so fluffy. You know, people just want to say my objective is to lead conversations on governance, on climate change. But what does that mean? What's the outcome? At the end of it, what do we want to see then about that climate change? Because it's very simple and very easy to use so many words to say nothing. And I have had that a lot in conferences. So us supporting our teams to be very clear on what the objectives are and ensuring that these objectives are properly cascaded from the organizational priorities so that achievement of those means achievement of the organizational purpose. There should be no secrecy with organizational strategies and plans. Sometimes leadership operates like secret service. And I'm just wondering, now you don't want us to know where you're going, yet we need to follow you there. So, you know, just share where we are going. Let everybody understand that this is the direction so that in what I'm doing every day as a staff, I am sure that I am supporting in meeting the organizational objectives. He has talked of openness. and honesty. Things like feedback. Even when we are doing all these salary surveys, at times it's because also we are doing salary survey, we want to benchmark, but at the same time we are also constrained, we have limits as to how far we can go budget-wise. But make clear the process. Don't just come out one day and say your salary was 100, now it's 120. We have done a robust process. And you want your staff to accept that the process was robust. You need to carry them along the changes that you're making, carry them along the obstacles, the challenges that the organization is facing, so that whatever they do, they are aligned and they are aware. We do it with our children. We tell them when we don't have money and they know that we will buy the bikes next year, we should do the same with our staff as well.
All right, very well said and very powerful, almost like closing remarks there for your question. Thanks a lot for that. So Loice, to you, and then finally we'll come to Bernard. As HR leaders look to 2025, this could be a tough cookie for you, but I'm sure you're up to the task anyway. What is one action HR leaders should prioritize to align purpose-driven teams for maximum impact?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I think my philosophy is we have to build internal capacity. I think there's always a thinking that, and Karen said this, that the person who has come is 0 days old, right? It's almost like for retention, for knowledge management and sharing, for employees to get ownership, they have to see their journey within the organization, right? So if the organization always goes externally to look for talent, and you said one, there's a lot of things, so I'm going to focus on that. Then there's a mistake that's happening for the reasons that I said. But I also believe that HR managers should always, where possible, hire at the lowest roles, right? So in an NGO setting, that's a program assistant or a program officer. So if as a HR lead, you're not creating the talent pipeline so that people knows in year one, I'm a program assistant, then I'm an officer, then I'm a, whatever the channel within your organization is, for me, it's a failure, right? Because for all those things that I mentioned, we need to be keen on how do we build internal capacity. And for me, this is more urgent because in some of the contexts that we work, we just don't have the talent. We don't have the luxury like Kenya or some other countries to go and get highly qualified people. So you almost have to be deliberate in creating those talent pipelines and saying, we know our programs, we know what our program expansion plan is, we know what our strategic plan is. Let's build the talent for the future internally. Right? So, of course, we have to be cognizant of, what is that word within banks, inbreeding, but I think in as much as possible, we have to build the talent internally. Again, for the reasons I said, knowledge management, institutional knowledge, keeping, retention, ownership, because if you're forever not looking internally for the talent, then you're failing the employees as a HR leader, in my opinion.
All right, very well said. Finally, Bernard, for you, if there's one piece of advice you'd give our team here, HR leaders and practitioners, to prepare for aligning purpose-driven teams in 2025 and beyond, what would it be?
Wow. I start by saying, understand that people are just people. We usually say people are the greatest asset of the organization. For me, I just say people are the organization. Without them, there is no organization. They are not assets. This person can come in the morning with a lot of feelings. And we need to understand they are just human beings. We expect, there's a expectation that this person will come like a machine. You switch on your laptop, it goes on. Immediately you start typing an email and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. But these people are just people. And the moment they actually realize that you appreciate and recognize them for the fact that they are human beings, they're not a machine, they're not here just for the purpose of doing your bidding. They also have purpose in their life. They have visions, they have dreams. Yes, your organization has vision, dreams, objectives, but they also have personal visions and dreams. When you actually make it for them to understand, we also appreciate you have your own vision, your dream, and your purpose. And as an organization, we are willing to partner with you to achieve that. Even as you achieve this, then you'll be able to have people who are so engaged. Because at the end of the day, people like to be appreciated. They like to be seen. They want someone to recognize, I've seen you. I recognize you. I know you are there. One of the key things we do as an organization is we have something called a coffee break. And what we do during coffee break, it happens once a month. We don't talk about anything, just talk about how are you as a person. For an hour, people just share, how are you doing? The last time you said you had a sick child, what is happening? People get to know who you are. People get to engage at a personal level. We spend most of our work hours in the offices. Most of your productive hours, you're with these people. And we need to reach a place where you feel, I belong. Most people actually, in most organizations, if they are not engaged, they work to be paid at the end of the month. So they actually have not even bought into the vision of the organization. You'll stop someone and ask them, why do we do what we do as an organization? They just look at, just work here. They need to understand, I'm a finance. Why am I a finance here? What is the result of me adding those numbers? What does it result to? And I think we need to, all people in culture and human resource professionals should be people that make sure when people come in, they feel they belong. That is one. And they feel that even here, I'm not just doing this organizational, pushing them to achieve what they achieve, but my personal vision and objectives are also being met here. Yeah, thank you.
Well done. We can give all the three of them a big round of applause. I think they've done an excellent, excellent job. We appreciate you, and thanks again. So back to the team. This is your time. I'm sure you may be having some burning questions that you want to ask relating to some of the things they've talked about, or even your own personal experiences based on current challenges. The floor is now open. It's up to you. Let's engage them. Let's hear those questions coming through. Direct them to whoever you want, and let's give them an opportunity to answer. And hey, it's not putting you on the spot. Just in case, yes, like Loice, you jumped in to help support Bernard's point, you're free to do that as well. All right, I'm also cognizant of the time, so I'm just trying to make sure we are in good space. We're always told that sitting has become the new smoking. So when we sit for too long, isn't it? So I'll give us like 30 seconds. You can stand up, and yes, you can, with me. You can stretch, and by the way, you can even yawn in your mother tongue. It is okay. You can stretch and yawn. Oh, yeah. And then we can sit down again. So thank you. So I saw a few hands going up, and I can have my team probably helping, passing down the mic. Yes, already I can see we've started at the back. It's almost everybody's hand is up. So clearly we're going to have everybody speaking. Yeah, so we can start from the back there, and then we will also take some of the front so we can balance the house. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And thank you to the panel. That was a really good conversation. I have a whole page of notes on my phone, so I may just follow up with some of you. My name is Faith. I work with Faro Foundation. I'm in charge of people and culture. And I've really loved this conversation. I think all the inputs were just so great, and especially now in our current dispensation, I think we are now having all these questions that we need to answer. So where I come from, our foundation is rooted in the fact that we have to work towards sustainability and the value for every dollar. And I think right now that's what is going to be also the case with a lot of the NGOs, especially now with some funding being cut, especially from the US. One of my greatest challenges has been in engaging and mission aligning that person in the remote area who believes that we're here to spend the money. When the funding comes, it should first, I think we had a joke in the office the other day that the funding should first impact me before it impacts my community, my sector and everything. So of course, for us, because our mission and our impact alignment is really around getting to sustainability as the end goal. It's been an ongoing conversation, and we've done a lot of engagement and also explaining the why, like you said it. But I also still feel like there's that missing, link, because next week we'll be in Ethiopia near the border talking to the program teams there. And they'll still ask us that question. And we want them to be refocused, and our main issue is that mindset shift towards purpose, what's my purpose? And when when I deliver in finance or in operations and in my sector in the program, that it's also aligning to the greater good. So for me, engagement for the remote teams remains a big issue. And I'm just looking for particular strategies because those who are in the town areas and also in the cities, somehow you will intellectually meet somewhere. But then for those who are then in the more remote areas, and you need them because they're the ones who penetrate in those programs that we do where it is raining or where it is hot, half the year and the other half it's hot. You want them also to be mission aligned for impact. So that's just an area I still struggle in, and I hope from anywhere, I don't have any particular person that can answer. I just would like, engagement there. Thanks.
I can go. I think that the thing you said that stuck out for me is for people in urban areas, you can intellectually meet. Now, the challenge for HR, people in culture, whatever we call ourselves, is that you have to speak to your people in a language they understand. So Bernard talked about openness, right? I think this time leadership has to be open. And I'm a big proponent of you have to dispel power distance, right? I like going into spaces, and Nick asked me, where do you want to sit? Even when I go to the field, I want to sit in the middle of the field teams because you have to speak to them in the language they understand. They may not understand strategy, big project, but how are you translating the message, the mission, the vision to the simplest of messages that they understand? So for me now, it would have to be, leadership has to come with a language to say, we are likely to experience challenges because of 1, 2, 3, 4, because of funding shortage, whatever it is. And then make sure that that message is reaching, not through third parties, through leadership. Leaders have to go to the field. And I tell my leaders across, you don't work for this corporate office, you work for the program teams. You have to go, you have to explain. So in the same way you're intellectually meeting with your teams in the urban, you have to find a way to intellectually connect, meet, communicate with the program teams in a language they understand, in a way that they will understand, in the simplest form of messaging.
I can just add to that.
Please do.
First of all, that's a unique challenge because I experience it the other way around, that the ones in the cities are the ones who think NGOs, we are here for the money. And it's a struggle because they're in the leadership, so they don't really understand. However, I think a lot is resolved in communication, and I think that's what Loice is talking about. And I just want to add on to that. While we are going to have this communication, of course, the more the levels, the more distorted the information that will get to them. So just breaking that chain down. Secondly, even in NGO, we are in a very competitive space, and that's what I tell my staff. There is a philanthropist somewhere who just wants to alleviate poverty through a health program. They could use evidence action, or they could use hundreds of other NGOs that exist, depending on who of us is most cost effective. At the end of the day, we have two choices. It's either we run a cost effective program, or another NGO that is cost effective gets the funding. We are always doing these proposals every day. So those are the two options we have. Remember, this philanthropist does not even know there is HR, there is the program person, there is what. For them, all they want is, if it's maternal health care, I just want that mother. That's the end product for them, and they don't care what's in between. So we are the in-betweens. Now, if we are able to demonstrate to this donor that, 70% or 80%, a big chunk of that dollar goes towards what their mission is, then it's a win for us. If we are not able to demonstrate that, so that the bigger chunk of the dollar comes to me, then the 20% goes to the beneficiary. Right seated next to me and next to me is another viable NGO that will take that funding. So it's a competitive space, and we all don't want to be out of work. So I think sometimes also it makes sense when we see, because people think we are not in competition because we are not in corporate. But there's a lot of competition with this funding, and we must always make sure that we are positioning ourselves to get it and to maintain it here. So if we get it this year, and you know, some of these grants, you're bidding every year or every 2 years. So you must make sure that every other time, you're still the attractive organization to run that project.
Okay. Oh, Bernard, you want to contribute on that? I know there are many other questions coming in.
I'll make it short.
Please do. Thank you.
The first thing is, what do we measure? Most NGOs measure burn rate. The moment you measure burn rate, what are you communicating? You're communicating the more money we burn, the better. So when you need to change the way we even call these things that we measure. So because people know the more money you burn, the more management fees, so that is what the organization gets. So at the end of the day, they know here, if we've been given $1 million, you have to spend all of it so that the organization can make whatever it needs to make. We need to change even those terms so that these people understand we are not here to burn money. We are here for the impact. The lives of these communities have to change. The life of these people have to. So you even change what we are measuring on a day-to-day basis. We review, we see this is not working, let's discuss, let's change it. So let's change what we're actually measuring, because that will really also make them understand what is our vision, why are we here? Yeah, thanks.
Very well said, very well answered. Yes, why don't we do this? Let's try table by table first, isn't it? And then we come back and again repeat for those who may not have answered the question. So we could move to the next table. Yes, right in front. Thank you. And then we'll come to you. All right, go ahead.
Great. My name is Cynthia. I work at Amnesty International. My question was touched on, but I just need further clarity. What are some of the performance measurement strategies that you have utilized, especially if your ecosystem is qualitative and highly fluid? What have you done?
Those words are driving us into deep thought. Qualitative and highly fluid.
I think in terms of the metrics, they vary depending on the outcome of the person or the team. Majority of things are qualitative, but everything can be measured. And if it cannot be measured, then it does not exist. And I dare say that because even in places, in NGOs, we like conversation, which is good. So somebody's JD can be all about convening meetings. But we need to understand outcomes. And for every activity that you're doing, you always have to ask yourself, what is the outcome? From that manager to that staff, what's the outcome? Even if you're going for a meeting, what's the outcome? Because it's very easy for me to say, as a grants person, I'll do 5 proposals in a year. I can even do 20. But if none of the proposals brings us the funding, then there's really no, I'm better off doing one, good one, and it gives us the funding. So I think it's about the end goal. It's not about the activity now, but what is the end goal of, what do we want to achieve from that whole process? So I think making people critically think, and I know people say we are always in an emergency environment, we are rushing to do the next thing, so we really have no time to critically think about our performance metrics. I have even questioned the organizational global key performance indicators that come from the US. Because I am thinking this is not an objective that is clear. This is not something that gives us a clear outcome. And without that, the rest of the process, as we know, is flawed. So I think it's to really create time. And maybe this is a challenge for me, but maybe a challenge for you as well. Let's do performance when performance can be done. So we can't be discussing important things in a season when people are not available. We can't be measuring performance in December when everybody is in the field. You know, it's conflicting, and people are not able to give the right attention to a very important process. So for me, I would say us thinking about the outcome, us thinking about how will we measure, assess that outcome, and giving time and giving room for the right performance conversations to happen.
So in other words, Karen, you're saying there's no silver bullet of a tool. You have to contextualize it in whatever outcomes you're seeking to achieve.
I was going to ask Cynthia, why
Yes.
are your
Fluid.
Very fluid and qualitative. Because as she says,
Yes.
you have to measure something, right? So I think there's a problem of how you're, I'm sorry to say this, but there might be a challenge in how you're setting them. Because there's no way you, as an organization, you exist for a reason. So if you're not putting in place metrics to measure the impact of what you're doing, then there's a problem in the metrics, in the objectives you've set. So I don't have an answer for that because I would never accept, you know, fluidity of
Maybe
Maybe
I can
you
just put
contextualize,
some,
yeah.
I can contextualize.
Please do.
We have objectives that are really, really real and whose outcomes you can literally see. But in the work that we do, no one anticipated Gen Z protests, did you? None of us did. And by the time it was happening, even the country and beyond did not know how to navigate. So before, remember, you already have some objectives that you're working on, but now this shift has happened, okay? Meaning, most probably you have to probably set aside whatever you're working on to concentrate on this emerging issue that has just come in. That is one context. The other context, some of our advocacy work takes years for you to literally feel the outcome. For instance, the death penalty around the world. That is a core imperative for most civil society organizations, and because it eventually impacts the human beings. But how do you tell this particular employee, yes, you have worked on the death penalty for 15 years, but you make 10 steps, then just one or two governments around the world or two countries literally take you back. So how do you constantly ensure that you give hope, you sell hope, and you give hope to the teams that, yes, our work is long-term, but these are the 2-3 little things that we can do that can measure traction. Can we also just say that it is not possible at times to undertake that performance conversation at this particular period because of what is happening? And how do you powerfully sell this message to leadership? Because we have some leaders who are hell-bent on the fact that this cycle needs to work the way it has been working. It has been working this way for 30 years. Why should it change? So those are some of the challenges I have personally had to undertake when in this particular space.
Yeah, thanks for the context. Apology for my ignorance. I think organizations that are agile and know when to pivot, because like you say, when the Gen Z protest happened, leadership where that affected you, you had to pivot. You had to say, okay, we had these objectives we wanted to achieve, but this has happened and it shifts our objectives. So I don't think objectives are rigid in a way that they cannot be, you know, improved or shelved or whatever the words we use. But I think agility is very important. I don't agree with the mindset that we've always done this, so we can't change. Because organizations that don't learn die. And we were talking about some of the countries that 50 years ago were here and now they're here. It's because you think we've done this forever, so it must work. But the world is changing. So for me, it's agility, being able to sit back as leadership, of course with, you know, input from all stakeholders and saying, how do we pivot based on what has happened? Because if you don't do that, then you're just going around a wheel and not making impact. So yeah, thanks. That would be my...
Thanks, and I can see Cynthia taking notes for that. Well noted. We still have a few rounds for a few more questions. I am really looking at my watch, but don't worry, we will do this. Go on.
Hi, my name is Rene. I work for Give Power Foundation. Mine is around culture. So as I talked about it with Loice a bit,
Yes.
but I would really want to hear what Karen and Bernard have to say about it. As you grow, as an organization scales and you move into different countries, so how do you maintain like culture? I'll use the example of Coca-Cola. Like there's a way, you know, like when you work for Coca-Cola, by the time you get into Coca-Cola, there's just a way that they all behave, the employees behave. How would you bring that, such a culture, into the NGO space. Because like for me, I got a shocker. It's my first time in an NGO space. So corporate world, there's a way that you manage employees. I work in an American organization. So we believe more in coaching staff. So if an employee makes a mistake, you don't rush into, show cause, the normal HR way of managing and disciplining an employee. You're told, oh, that's a coaching moment. Yeah, it's a coaching moment. So you coach an employee into the behavior that you want to see. Yeah. So, and you see, you're growing. I don't have the time, I don't have the patience to keep coaching, and you have people who've come from different sectors, and now they're here. So another employee comes and, they are, driven. You have to do this, you have to do that. Then you tell them, my dear, slow down. Slow down, This is not how things work here. And you get an employee who comes and, they want to push employees. You're told, this is not the right person for this organization. They need to. So how do you balance that? We are Kenyans, we are used to the, fast-paced, but the American way is different. And you're moving into different African countries and you want to have this culture. The American way, the Kenyan way, the Ugandan way, it's different. So how do you guys who've been in different countries, please help me. Thank you.
Cry for help right there, genuinely. So
I think I can first of all start by empathizing. The
Yes,
shift
ma'am.
from corporate to NGO is not an easy one. I think I have memory of that. Otherwise, having said that, I think, and here I'm open to unpopular opinion. I think in HR, we misalign a lot of things. I'm yet to understand very well culture because I have my own understanding, but I really think culture is about organizational values. I can't see a world where we achieve sameness in behavior because how I do my things is informed by a lot. And that's why even there's the difference, even in countries. When you work with a Kenyan, a Somali, a Tanzanian, all of you who have done that, there's a clear difference. And I think that can never be undone. It is just the way it is. And that is not, it has nothing to do with culture. Hence why I struggle with fast-paced organizations. For me, I think there are certain values that we can subscribe to as an organization. For example, integrity is a value. So we are saying all of us here have integrity. Respect for people. I have to respect you, you have to respect me. So we will have 4, 5, 6 values that we anchor ourselves on and say, this is who we are as an organization. And then these support us to achieve results. So I will then ask people to be very tolerant of each other so that I can just, you have already realized I'm a very fast talker. So I will give myself grace to listen to a Tanzanian speak. That is not a culture problem, it's just their talking. At the end of the day, as long as if my values is integrity, respect, and then they are achieving their objectives, that is all that matters. Whether they are talking fast or not, whether, I need to, it's just me who needs now to work on my patience. And the truth is, we will meet different caliber of people with every other environment that we meet. So I think as an organization, we need to be clear, what is it that is our culture? Majority of the time, I find that we are all aligned on the same values, but there is a sameness that we are looking for that we are not getting, and we are thinking that's a misalignment of culture. And yet I don't think it is. So in short, what I'm trying to tell you is maybe there's no problem. Maybe it is maybe it's actually fine as it is, and it is just for you to tell yourself, okay, fine, I'm from this very fast-paced Equity or Safaricom, but I now need to just not change yourself because you're already as you are. So it's now to understand that this other person is different, and that's just okay, as long as the values are not compromised, and as long as the performance is on flick.
Bernard, looks like you have a point to contribute. Please go ahead.
No, I just want to add into what Karen has just said. Culture, for me, is about what do we believe in as an organization. It's like a family. in our family, we don't do this. We don't watch TV during the week. That's our family. But I can never push that to everyone around us, okay? So let's say, for example, you're a Christian, you know how you're supposed to behave. So there are things that are the foundation of who your organization is. So you say, for example, our values are courage, our value is integrity, our value is respect. And then what does it mean to show respect? Needs to be broken down to everyone to understand it. As an organization, respect looks like this, okay? Courage looks like this. Because what usually happens is we just tell people, these are our values, courage, what. But now people are not able to translate that courage into action. So they just know, so everyone defines their own courage. So if I can walk to Karen and speak my mind, it doesn't matter how she feels about it, I'm courageous. I've talked to her about this point, but we need to break down what does courage mean and how do we actually demonstrate it in this organization. Then all the other things that I've said when I was talking earlier is that people are different. You can never achieve sameness, ever. I never tried. You will fail miserably. Not now, forever. You will fail miserably. People are very different. And people come in the morning with different things. I've had a fight probably with my wife. When I enter in the morning, I don't want to see anyone. So when you tell me it's a coaching session, I don't care. So the thing about it is we need to understand that when Bernard now understand what does respect look like in this organization, it means even when I carry my own issues, I need not to translate it to someone else. So I'll come in the morning and Karen will want to tell Karen, it's not that day. Just give me my space. Okay? So people understand what respect means for your organization. Once you're able to demonstrate that, you're able to teach that, and leaders are able to demonstrate it, because sometimes we expect our staff to demonstrate values, but our leaders are doing something contrary to what is supposed to be done. So our leaders need to be the examples. They need to lead by example, by demonstrating these things, and then it trickles down. So that is what I'll say. For me, culture is what do we believe in? What do we stand for as an organization? Not all of us should be talking the same or working at different paces. Some people work very fast, some people are very slow. But you'll find the slow ones, when you give them a report, they'll give you the best report you've ever seen or ever read. Well, this first one, they'll do the report within an hour, but you have to change almost everything that they've actually done. So it's a matter of appreciating who people are, but actually all of us prescribe to these values that the organization stand for.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well said. Creating a lot of oneness in that diversity. Because, yes, you want to add something. Yes, let's have the mic and then welcome, because this table has not had a comment, and then we'll come back to you. I'm being mindful of my time. We have around 14 minutes for this, and then we'll transition to something else very quickly, and we'll do it differently today. So let's proceed.
Okay, what I've noticed, sometimes we focus so much on culture at the expense of performance. So you have to balance both. As you are emphasizing on culture, you also have to emphasize on performance. And there has to be good systems, processes for performance management. And staff also have to know there's consequential management here. Very clearly articulated. If you perform, there are rewards, merits, whatever. And if you don't perform, there's the performance improvement plan, and then observation, and then we have a conversation. You know, maybe you are struggling, you are not fit for the role. So culture, yes, we emphasize on that. That doesn't mean we are going to babysit everybody. Our culture is hallelujah and amen, and we are not performing. You have to balance both. They have to know, yes, our values are this, because we have to live in an environment where we are enjoying, all of us. But at the same time, we are here to deliver. So balancing performance management and culture that is conducive for performance. Yeah.
Okay. I was doing some bit of consulting on the other side, but I'm very much present. Yes, question.
Right. Thank you, and thank you so much to the panelists for the great discussion. So for me, I want to just build up on what Renee said, and I think Loice, and it's also on building internal capacity. So you remember there's this, there are these employees who have been in the organization long. So in terms of retention, you have retained them. You have tried to you have tried to engage them, and
What
you
a way
have
to
tried
say that.
everything. So you find that where I'm conflicted most of the time, and not necessarily where I am currently, but what I've seen across the years of work. So one of the things you'd find is that you may have these employees who, yes, they're workers, but they're giving the bare minimum. They're not giving their best. And so you are trying to build that internal capacity where you're not going to say, this person is coming from zero. We have this person who's been here 20 years. So you start asking yourself, this person, I have tried. I have allocated you a budget for training. You have personal development. We have given you all the opportunity to grow. However, we have pushed you. And we have tried the coaching. We have tried everything. But this person is not moving forward. This person is still at the same place. You have tried, when I say tried, you have tried. So you start asking yourself, what do you do in terms of building that internal capacity? Because how do you build that one? As far as, building that capacity is concerned. So there's that. And then there's the issue of bringing that other person. And again, internal breeding, I have different opinions on it. However, it is good to keep your people, to grow them and all that. I am part of that. I mean, I've grown because of that. Where I think there is that gap is where now you find people have become comfortable, people understand the organization, but they're not willing to move further. Or they've reached that capacity where you're not seeing, they're no longer, they're comfortable. Let me just call it that. They're comfortable. So it's not about growth for them. It's about, I am in a good organization. I am fine where I am. So long as I'm giving my bare minimum, I'm meeting expectations, it's okay. But you see, that is not how it's supposed to be. So you want to bring in other people who are going to come and, let me call it raffle for the sake of this, to bring that sort of competition within the team, or to make people start, thinking or looking at work differently. And I think that is what Renee is also talking about, where you're thinking, madam, si kazi tu, fanya maliza, and we move on to other things. But they want to be babysat, in quotes. So there's that, where I'm conflicted is where you're trying to build that internal capacity, but at the same time, there's that issue where people are comfortable or they're not just growing. You've tried everything for them to grow. So I think that is where sometimes I also ask myself, what do I do as a HR practitioner? How do I help these people? At the same time, you're also looking at it and leading from a people-centric perspective, where you're also being compassionate, and you're trying to think, okay, let's give some grace. We are not all the same. But again, for how long?
What was the question again?
No, it was a comment. And what I was just trying to say is, sometimes you may not get that perfect fit. Yeah. Or you may never get the perfect answer. Yeah. So it's for you to try and see, what do you do? Do you bring in that zero person? Or do you build the internal capacity, which is not building?
Yeah. But I think, sorry.
Let me go. I think what I have done everywhere I've worked in every country, we have skills matrix for all our employees, right? So I want to know who is the comfortable one and who is a person who can be groomed. Like, if you're comfortable and you're not creating problems, I really don't have a problem with you, because as long as the job exists and you are doing it, not bare minimum, because the skills matrix will show me if you're performing, I don't have a problem with you. The problem comes if you're not performing and you want to stay in the role. In that way, you're obstructing. But your skills matrix tells you who are the people I am grooming to grow. It doesn't mean it's everyone in the organization. I mean, even in your family, you have people who are this way, that way, that way. But as HR, you have to know, what is my talent pipeline? So when we are expanding into a new country, into a new program, who are the people that I tap first? You have to do that, because if you do not create pipelines for your top performance, they leave. So it doesn't mean your pipeline is for everyone, because we have different, but for your top performance, you must have pipelines. Because if you don't create them, they will find the roles elsewhere. That is just how I function. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think, and when I say that sometimes you may need to get that external person, is because probably looking at, and you see, depending on how the organization is structured, you may have different departments. And so when you're looking at the talent pipeline and you're looking and you're seeing this person or where we have the team, there's no one really. You get. So it's not, and that is what I was saying, it can never be a perfect fit. It's for you to look, analyze, and see where are there gaps? Where can we fill the gaps? What do we do about the gaps? So, and it was just more of, again, reacting to,
and for
to
me
the coaching and the and
for
the
me
different
personally,
teams.
your tenure in the organization is not a measure of if you should be promoted. That is not a metric I use. It's basically what has been your performance, attitude. I think someone says on LinkedIn as a cliche, all jobs can be taught. And in the space we work with, all jobs can be taught. So you look at what skills do you have, and learning, growing, coaching is more personal than organizational. I can give you a budget, like Bernard said, but if you don't do anything with it, I've done my part. So it's just identifying who is your talent pipeline and then building the pipeline for them. But how long you've been here is not a measure for me that you should automatically be promoted. Yeah.
Okay, again, looking at my clock. Keith, I think you had a question. Why don't we wrap this one with Keith? I know at some point our two panelists would want to leave for some other engagement, and we'd promised to want to do that by noon, which would mean I would want to see if we can have some time at least get to exchange some numbers, isn't it? Or contacts, which would be good in a way to help these conversations continue, because for sure we cannot wrap up everything here today, but at least I love the way the conversations are going. So I'll give Keith this opportunity and then we can see. Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm not, don't want to look like I'm dominating, but it's something that I thought probably could also contribute to something that could help, especially in addition to what Karen answered in terms of talent identification and succession planning. And I think you've alluded to that also in terms of having a pipeline. Most of the time we focus on managerial and pivotal roles, and then we focus so much on developing those people for succession planning. You need to start identifying talents from the time somebody steps into the organization. And these middle managers are the ones who can help you identify. And you look at consistency. I mean, somebody can come in as an intern and that person is really performing and they're showing a lot of potential. You need to start having a pipeline for those people. And as Karen says, sometimes you can focus on those officers for managerial positions. And those are the people who are likely to leave because they're also looking for management positions outside there. So you focus so much on them, and they leave, and the person you are preparing them for also leaves, and you remain. So you must identify your critical roles and start having pipelines for them. That in turn, you can say this one has potential, but can be ready in 3 years. And start thinking of activities that you are going to be engaging these people as you develop them internally. Because if those officers leave, at least you have that intern that you have spent a little time on, and they can easily jump into that if they are actually given more support. So I just thought I would just mention that because I thought it adds to the talent identification and succession planning.
Thank you, and appreciate it. So Keith, finally.
So I'm Keith. I'm currently the director of Hardtalk Consults. We deal in recruitment, so my questions are based on my expertise in recruitment, and this is going to go to Bernard. One of the questions that I have for you is, right now we are living in a different dynamic. So one of the things that I've seen that most organizations face is they're still stuck into the traditional HR side, especially when it comes to recruitments. They don't understand the current market. They don't understand the candidates they want. Yeah, I find it very traditional when someone tells me, we are looking for this kind of person. Yeah, so that shows me like you're hiring someone based on what they know, but not based on what they can do. Okay, so now these are things we need to look at. So what I'd ask is, with like AI right now, as much as it helps us as recruiters, it takes a lot of time away from us, yeah? Saves us a lot of time. through chat boxes and ATS systems. So what I wanted to ask also would be, how would you, how are you implementing, or how are you monitoring, for instance, like the change from RTO, return to office, to remote right now? How are you monitoring remote working? Also, another thing I'd say is, how do you understand the market? Do you understand what the balance is between having a flexible work plan and how structured it can be? Yeah.
Okay. Quite a challenging question. How do we monitor remote working? We don't monitor. And that's the plain truth. I don't follow up on to find out whether you worked from 8 to 9. I don't. The most important thing is the deliverables that you're supposed to report to every quarter. So that is what will tell me whether you've been able to deliver or not, whether you're working or not. So our remote working, we work 3 days in the office and 2 days remote. So how we do this is we have a day when all staff are supposed to be in the office, and that is on a Tuesday. Then we have a day where your department is in the office. Then you have a day where you yourself, you just choose from those 2 days, the remaining 3 days, you choose which day you'll come to the office. The other 2 days you can work wherever you want, whether you want to go to work from up country, it's your own, no one will follow up. But we also have to ensure that there is that consistent communication. We have check-ins after 2 weeks on deliverables. So you have department reporting on what have you been working on, where are you, those kind of measures. So we don't actually police anyone when they are working remotely. So you don't have like an AI tool to show us that you are in front of the laptop the whole day. Whether you close it the whole day, it's up to you. The most important thing is the deliverables that you're supposed to deliver are very clear. And those ones we are very strict about in terms of how you're going to achieve them. So if we realize after two feedback session you are lagging behind, we've actually sometimes taken away the privilege of remote working from people when we realize for 2 sessions of feedback, you actually are lagging behind. So it means you actually need to be more supervised from an office kind of space. But it hasn't happened for too many people. It has happened to very few staff members. But we want people to be able to know they're in control of their performance. They're in control of their work. So that is what we do. You talked about AI tool, the ATS. The way we do it is, so we will have our recruitment firm support us with the first level a shortlist. But then we have to do competency-based interviews where we don't just ask you, or we want to hear what you've been able to do. And from there, we'll know whether we are recruiting the right person or not. Okay? So we'll ask, we'll just ask work of, especially of what you're doing at the projects. And sometimes we'll even do practicals. We'll take you to the field to hear what will be your response to some of these things. So that we want to know that this person, not only just, we may look at not the person who will fit 100%, but we look at the potential of this person performing. Because you're also looking at how do you interact with people. One of the things that I've been reading about is having even the new recruit being interviewed by other staff members. I'm yet to implement that so that I'm trying to figure out how it's gonna work so that they kind of get to know, is this someone who we can actually work with? Is this someone we can actually work with? I'm yet to implement that, but it's something I'm still researching and just reading through to find out if it can work and how it can work best. Because you just want someone who can be able to come in, plug in. People enjoy working with a person because you want to build a family that can able to push you to deliver what you need to deliver. Yeah.
Well said, well done. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a time where we all deserve a round of applause, isn't it? Good job, well done, very engaging. I feel the pressure of saying, okay, now time is running out, but nonetheless, it's been good. This is what I'd like us to do. And again, to our panelists, by the way, another round of applause saying thank you, guys. Good job, Bernard, good job, Karen, good job, Loice. One thing you don't know, when I was getting to almost have like a pre-event kind of an introductory conversation with the 3 of our panelists, that actually there's been some connection with the 3 of them that we didn't plan that way, but that's how it worked. At some point, Bernard and Karen work together, right? Work together in one organization at some point. And the job Karen currently has, she filled in from Loice. Very interesting, isn't it? So, who knows? The world has become, it's not even a village anymore. It's like an apartment block. Oh, you're also on third floor. Okay, and so you never know. You never know. What you occupy today could be an opportunity for somebody in the room, and somebody could actually be preparing an opportunity for you. And therefore, the opportunities we have where we engage and interact with one another, it's just one of those good things where we learn by sharing experiences and challenges, and guess what? We equally find the solutions right here. Now, we're going into a moment where we want to see how we can come up with some of the practical solutions to some of the challenges we face in the workplace, and how we at AMI, again, giving you an opportunity to see how we work, particularly when we engage in our training programs, how we facilitate learning through the use of certain developed tools that help you navigate the challenging opportunities. And one thing we want to do is how we get to do that together, where we still reinforce a bit of our learning programs using opportunities for peer-to-peer learning. And so you're going to just have a taste of how that works. What I'd like us to do, even as we get to prepare for that session, is have like what? A 5-minute break? Would that be good? For those of us to take a bathroom break or a stretch break, or still I have something else to, take down. We have juices, we've got food along. So why don't we do that and convene at exactly 11:40, being mindful of time here. We may stretch a bit, but I'm sure it's going to be an opportunity for us to just get to see how this learning then becomes meaningful in a way that we can take it back to our workplace and be able to implement some of the things done. So without much ado, let's take the 5-minute break and then we'll convene. Thank you so much.